In this video, I would like to talk about something that I noticed in the Unabomber documentary on Netflix that I think is worth talking about because I think it has wider applications or wider ramifications. Now, first of all, I have to say that in spite of uh, the misgivings that you might have, rightfully so, or rightly so, the misgivings you might have about Netflix, and Netflix doing a documentary. There actually have been some Netflix documentaries that have been rather good, and I think this is one of them. This documentary on Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, is rather fair. Um, it explores lots of things about the man, including things that were done unto him that perhaps were not to his benefit, and that perhaps had the unfortunate effect of shaping him into the kind of man that he became. Um, there is it's not all just like uh, he's a terrorist, gross. Uh, there's an effort to see what makes the guy tick, what his philosophy was, why he developed his philosophy. In addition to covering aspects of his life, um, some of which aren't terribly flattering, but I mean I think it's altogether a well-rounded picture of the man. Now, um, what interests me the most is a certain section of the the documentary. I think it was covered in maybe episode 2. Uh, it's when Ted has gone to Harvard at a very young age, and his IQ is through the roof. He's incredibly bright, but you know, socially awkward, socially beyond awkward, right? And he's just been shuffled along, um, he's not well adjusted at all. I think he starts Harvard when he's 15 or 16, something like that, something insane. Hanging out with all of these properly aged college kids. While he's in uh, college at Harvard, he volunteers to take part in this study, which, unbeknownst to him, is conducted by or is run by one of the notorious MK Ultra doctors, um, and the the way that the program is sold to him is this is a way to debate ideas with your fellow classmates. And of course, it was a way of getting money, which Kaczynski needed in college. So he leapt at the idea of taking part in this study. Now, this was during the prime years of MK Ultra, late 50s, early 60s. This is when they were doing all kinds of things, putting LSD in people's drinks without their knowing it, all kinds of what you know what they ought to have known better, but they didn't care because they're soulless and sociopathic. These people, these um, these CIA people who were conducting these kinds of experiments. And no, I don't think I'm being unfair in that assessment. I think that is absolutely on the mark. So, what this program turned out to be, instead of Kaczynski getting to debate ideas with his peers, which is sort of how it was sold, Instead, what happens is he's paired with this older man who's this, this doctor, this renowned doctor, who started it up, this entire program. It was his uh, brainchild, and it turns out that the program is all about subjecting students, these young people, to to a great amount of stress and strain by endlessly mocking and belittling them. So what you hear, and they play certain passages from um, the these sessions where Ted Kaczynski, a young Ted, is talking to this much older doctor, and the doctor is just berating him just over and over, telling him how worthless his ideas are, and how asinine and he is, and how there's really no depth to anything that he's saying. He's really just a very shallow thinker. It's just that over and over and over again, and he doesn't say it. It's not like he ever really raises his voice. He doesn't yell at him. He doesn't, um, you know, like it's not like a getting uh, getting reamed at halftime by your coach if you're sucking on the field. It's not it doesn't have that kind of feel to it, but it's more like just an older man, just just somebody who, from Kaczynski's point of view, is much more, somebody who's got his shit together and knows what he's talking about, who's just telling him over and over and over and over how his ideas are just worthless, and now how shockingly uh, unprepared he is, and how just over and over again how much of an idiot Ted is. That's what gets repeated over and over again in these sessions, and that was the whole point of these sessions, was to see how these young students would respond, under the auspices of it being a chance to debate. And there are people who talk about how, um, like, Kaczynski didn't have a very easy time making friends, but one guy that he did make friends with talks about how he was such a changed person after he went through this daily or weekly, I'm not sure how often it was, these regular sessions of belittlement and humiliation, and how it changed him, how it hardened him. Um, Kaczynski, of course, said that it had no effect on him at all, but he would say that. I mean, he wouldn't want it to be known that they got to him. He had much too much pride for that. So I think it's highly likely that, especially when you're talking to a kid, who's at an even younger age than most college kids are, and even if it's a kid, and even if it's an 18-year-old kid going to Harvard, he's obviously smart. He's obviously there amongst the best and brightest. At least, at least that would have been the case in 1950. I don't know about now with their dingbat president that they've got right now, and the whole uh, deterioration of academia generally. But in the 50s, yeah, it was pretty high standards. But even your typical Harvard student would no doubt be psychologically affected by detrimentally affected by these kinds of exchanges where the whole idea was that this older authoritative figure just comes and tells him he's just full of nonsense, and he's got nothing going for him, and that it's that same idea over and over and over and over again. um so you got to expect that when it's with a younger kid, a kid like young Ted Kaczynski, who again, extremely bright, um brighter than, probably higher, probably has a higher IQ than anybody else at Harvard at the time, but still, very vulnerable, still extremely insecure, and he remained insecure around other people. In human interaction, he was always somebody who had a very difficult time, relating to other people, and having what we would call normal interactions with others. So you got to expect that it would have uh, a detrimental effect on his psyche. Now, his brother is somebody who is interviewed a great deal in this Netflix documentary. And his brother, even though he turned him in, and I know that people out there will say that was a sorry thing to do. That was he was a traitor to his own, to his own flesh and blood. I don't know. I understand if your brother is sending bombs to people and blowing them up. I understand why you might feel a moral obligation to rat on him. Okay, I'm not putting his brother down for that. In fact, his brother seems like a nice guy, but also seems somewhat. I don't know if I want to say effeminate, because I'm not saying his brother. I'm not implying that his brother is homosexual, but there's something there is an effeminacy to his some of the things that he's saying, some of the conclusions that he reaches. And he talks. One of the things that he says, he talks about when Ted had to go through all of this, and he talked about how it must have been an awful thing for Ted, and he felt sorry for him to have to endure these sessions where he was berated and belittled. But then he said something that really caught my attention, uh, and did not sit well with me at all. He said something like, maybe sometimes it's better to get to be broken than to be hardened. Maybe sometimes it's better to be broken than to be hardened. He talked about how Ted would, not want to be broken by all. It was like a way of, he saw it as a test, not to break his will, not to break his spirit. But his brother actually says, well, what would actually wishes that his brother had been broken by it. Like, there's something that just does not sit well with me about that. Um, you just want him to knuckle under and I don't know, not keep fighting, just knuckle under and accept the humiliation, and you know that's what you want. That's what you want your brother to do. Don't you want your brother to stand up for himself? Don't you want? I mean, if if you're thinking about someone you love being subjected to something like that, do you really want them to just uh, to be broken, to accept defeat and be broken? Now, of course, he's saying this in retrospect, thinking that Ted became afterwards eventually became this recluse uh, who who had no interactions with people and worked all day on this this manifesto about how the how technology was evil and who was sending bombs to blow people up. So thinking about that, like that, thinking that that was what he became since he got hardened. That with that in mind, maybe it was better to have been broken than hardened. Even so, it still doesn't sit well with me. It absolutely. I mean, I don't think that Kaczynski went. I don't think his life went in the right direction. I definitely um, am not defending the kind of life that he led and the kind of things that he did at the end of his life, or in the, I guess, the middle part of his life when he was living in seclusion and doing his Unabomber thing. But why on earth would you ever say just be broken? Just oh brother of mine, just be broken. Just let them break you. Um, I really got mad at this guy. I got mad at Ted's brother when he said that. And I thought he seemed like a nice guy. He seemed like a compassionate, sympathetic guy. He seemed like somebody who, through it all, still loved Ted, even though Ted was a very difficult person to get along with, and even though Ted turned out to be a murderer, and all of that, it seemed like you could still tell that he cared about his brother. But man, why would you want him to be broken? Why would you think that would be a good thing if he was broken by this? I mean, can't shouldn't you take pride in the fact that he wasn't broken by it? I mean, that's what I would do if it were talking about any loved one of mine being subjected to something like that. I would be proud. I would be pleased as punch if my son or my daughter were subjected to something like that, and they didn't back down. Even if even if it even if it would break my heart that they were in that kind of situation at all. There's no part of me that would just think, oh well, just be broken. Just go ahead and be broken. I mean, why would you want somebody to be broken? That's and maybe if I'm applying this in a larger sense, uh, societally, is that is that maybe like what what people who what happens when you get uh, uh, brainwashed? When you get quote unquote domesticated, when you learn to parrot the things that they're telling you and not to think for yourself and not to go off in these directions that they say are bad, bad, bad. No, don't go off on that line of inquiry. That's bad. Ultimately, it seems that accepting their propaganda is being broken. It's, I mean, for some people, it's just something they don't even think about, right? So they're not really broken by it. They just shrug and go along with it. But for people who have uh, a greater mind and a greater spirit and the ability to defy uh, uh, these injunctions, or to question them, or to uh, um, to look more closely at them and decide that they are found wanting. The ones who are out there who say to people like me, well, just do Just do what you're told. Just like you don't have to believe it. Just do it. Just say yes, sir, and do what you're told. You know that doesn't sit well with me. So there you go. What do y'all think?